Hi, I'm Joanne Dennison, CMP, Certified Meeting Professional, and we're here today to talk about room sets. Now, where am I? I'm obviously not in my living room, not in my office. I am in the beautiful Wind Creek Resort, which is located in the heart of Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Lehigh Valley is made up primarily of the towns of Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton. You may have heard of those. It is located about an hour and a half west of New York City and about an hour north of Philadelphia. Beautiful, beautiful area, very easy to get to, excellent for drive-in regional meetings especially. So definitely check it out. It also is the home of two very important companies. One is Just Born, and it is the home of Peeps. So therefore we're celebrating Peeps in this video too, and it is also the home of Crayola, as in the crayons that most of us had growing up, and now of course they have so many other things. We have a couple of people who did bring this to life. Wind Creek and Discover Lehigh Valley have been very instrumental in letting me have hotel space to do this video I've been wanting to do for so long, and also who you can't see behind the camera is ASR Media, who is both filming and doing the editing and the production of this video. So let's take a look at some setups and see not only what they are, but why we want to use them. So in this room, we're going to talk about what is called a board set, or sometimes a conference set. And a board set is probably pretty much what you're thinking of it for a board of directors meeting. So usually what we think of with a board set is the solid big table in the boardroom. And with a conference set, what makes it slightly different is frequently it's put together with two tables. There isn't one solid table, and it might be a little bigger than a traditional board. When we're talking about these sets, they're frequently so everyone can see each other. Therefore, it's a great source of communication. If you were to sit at any kind of setup that had a linear side to it, so a straight long side, and there were 10 people sitting at it, if you sat at one end and looked all the way down to the far end, good chance you'll find out that 10 people down is actually pretty far and you may not be able to see them. So if a purpose of a set is to allow everyone to see and communicate each other, no more than 10 on a side for a board or conference set. And then on the ends, depending on the width of it, there might be one, there might be two. They're also really, really good for sound equipment in the center of the table, like a Polycom for a phone-in conference call for someone maybe who can't make it, and also if you are recording the proceedings. So the setup we're going to talk about here is what's called a pod, spelled P-O-D. And this is a relatively new room setup in the scheme of meetings and events. It is a small group workspace. They usually sit 2 on each side and 1 or 2 on each end. So usually the largest one is 8. It's frequently a number of 6 people working together. And the whole idea is everyone can see each other. Everyone can easily talk to each other without having to shout. And there is a solid workspace where you can actually do group work together. One of the other key things you need to think about if you decide to use this setup is, will there be visual AV or a presenter? Because if so, you want to make sure that you do not put someone at the end of the pod, because someone's back will therefore be toward the presentation, and we always want to avoid that. So in this set, we're going to talk about banquet style room setups. And you all know what they are. It's one of the most traditional. It's one of the ones that has been used the longest, even in the modern meetings and events and hospitality industry. One of the problems that we run into a lot is too many chairs being put around the table. 8 chairs around a 60-inch table is a safe, comfortable fit, because you do always want to sit in the attendee's chair and say, what is it like to sit here and experience whatever I am supposed to be experiencing? Can I engage with the people at my table? Can I get into my seat safely? Can I push back and get out of my seat safely? So you need to think about that. Other things that may hinder it are floor-length linens. If you're doing floor-length linens, those can be very challenging to get in and out of a table. How will people be dressed? Will anyone be in floor-length gowns or something similar that could make it even more difficult to get in and out? The other thing I want to point out to you is it is called Banquet Set for a reason. It is for banquets. But this is not for group work. This is not for a presentation. This is for a banquet, some kind of food and beverage where people are sitting down at tables together to converse. So now we're going to talk about the Crescent Set. I want you to think about not only, again, what it is, but the strategy behind how do you use it. So consider the Crescent the sister to the Banquet for many different reasons. Crescent is set up where you take anywhere from 1 to maybe as many as 3 chairs away from the same side of the table, so no one is sitting with their back to the presenter or the presentation. That's a very key thing to remember in strategy. If people cannot see or cannot hear, they disengage, which lowers your return on investment of your presenter. So that's one thing to think about. Are you having a presenter, no one having their back to it? It's also what is called a quick set, where you can flip from a crescent to a full banquet or back to a crescent very easily just by adding those additional chairs, which is a really nice way to flip a room without having to actually tear up and truly flip a whole room. It also is very good for being able to do any kind of work, and because it has a table, it is really important because it allows people to be able to take notes however they choose to take notes. So Crescent style has many, many advantages to use it. You need to always think of the strategy. You need to always think about sitting in the attendee's chair and use it in the best way possible. The room setup we're going to talk about here is one you are less likely to be familiar with. It is what's called a two-tiered setup. In this setup, it's a series of risers or platforms around another setup that's in the center. It's for observers to watch something that's going on in the center. Educational format that we talk about is called the fishbowl format. This would be actually a form of learning where there is something going on again in the center, but there are observers on the outside watching what is going on. But our job on the outside was strictly to observe. We couldn't say anything to them, they couldn't say anything to us. So if you think about two-tiered as an observation style of setup, there's an activity going on in the center and observers are on the outside, and the most common educational format would be the fishbowl format. Again, also sometimes used for board meetings where people are observing. Now we're going to talk about the U-shape setup. Now when I say that, I mean the one that looks like this. So it has 3 sides and an opening. The opening is usually for a presenter, so it allows for everyone to see a presenter and presentation. The other thing it does, because of its format, is it allows everyone to see each other and be able to talk to each other. At one point they used to say that a U should never have more than 10 people on a side. So a U would never have more than 30 people, for example. And the reason behind that thought was, if you were sitting on the end, for example, and you needed to turn and look at everyone who's on the same segment that you're on, that you would be able to see all the way down to see all 10 people. The reality is when you sit at a table and do that has 10 people, it's much further down than you think it is. And even if you have them sitting as close as possible, you are not going to be able to see people. So that is the maximum a U should have on it. Another thing to be thinking about, talking about how many people can you put on a side, people come with a lot more things than they used to now. And if you try to put too many people at a space, people are going to become uncomfortable and may not be able to do what they need. So more now we find 1 per 2 feet or 1 per 3 feet, which means 1 per meter. Here's one of the things I've heard over and over in my classes, is of people using U because it's someone's favorite room setup. There should be no favorite room setups, or putting a second U inside the framework of this U. If you consider that one of the key reasons, again, you're using a U is to increase people's visibility and communication so everyone can see each other, the minute you sit another U inside, nobody can see anybody. So it totally defeats the purpose. It should be a setup based on strategy and goals and objectives. What setup is going to make the session work the best, increase engagement, which in turn increases return on investment? The set we're going to talk about this time is what's sometimes known as the hollow square, the open square, or just even the square. And it's this, just what a square is. So again, it's not just about what it is, it's the strategy behind why do you use it. So a hollow square is a closed square on all four sides. Why would we do this? First of all, if there is a group that needs to meet and they need to see each other and communicate with each other, but there is no presentation per se. So the only AV you usually do use with it is, let's say, if you are recording the proceedings, you can put the recording equipment in the center of the square and it will pick up from all the way around. Or if you have someone calling in, maybe on a Polycom or some other piece of equipment where they are calling in so their voice can be heard by everyone and they can hear everyone's voice. Again, you have a table for taking notes, extremely important. Everyone is in some kind of group discussion. They need to see and hear each other. Traditional meeting room set. You probably think of theater style, or what also can be called auditorium style. And of course it comes from events that were in the theater. Here's the thing though, it is not good for taking notes. It is not conducive for them to pay attention to the presenter and also take notes. So therefore, theater style is moving away, or should be moving away, from being a popular form of general session. You can't expect people in any type of setup, in any type of session, to take notes if you have not provided a table for them. The next thing is that it's very difficult to talk to people except maybe the people on either side of you. If we are in a general session and the presenter says, talk amongst yourself about this, it is impossible to do it effectively. The irony is the set that we use the most often is one of the least productive. So what I want to take you through is what are some options you can do to set up what you might be thinking of as a general session and turn it into something that brings more value to your meetings and events with little to no cost. So here's the first thing you can do with little to no expense to increase the return on investment in your room set. Switch the side of the room that you are facing. When you flip it to what they call the long side of the room, it brings everyone in the room closer to the presenter. When people are closer to the presenter, they tend to be more engaged, and more engagement, again, increases return on investment. Second thing you can do to improve an attendee's experience in the room is the concept of no straight rows. With straight rows, when you think about it, the people who are not in front of the presenter end up having to turn their head or turn part of their body to be able to actually see the presenter. So by gently curving the rows on the inside, everyone can turn and face the presenter without having to put their body in any kind of discomfort. Not only that, but you begin to see other people in the audience, which tends to build a sense of community, and you feed off of each other's energy also, making it a better experience for everyone involved. So no straight rows. In this set, I want to show you two different things. The first is a chevron style setup, which is very similar to the curved rows in that it has the same purpose, so that everyone can easily and comfortably see the presenter. Chevron is sometimes just set up as a V, or in this case, it's set up with the two wing sides and a base. Either way, everyone is now directly facing the presenter, increasing the engagement. But the other point I wanted to make in this particular setup is the idea of no center aisle. Why would we want to get rid of the center aisle? As you see in this particular setup, it's actually now a third, and a third, with two side aisles going through the audience. When a presenter is speaking, they pick up a lot of their energy and a lot of their feedback from that of the audience. If they are looking at a center aisle, they are looking at blank floor, hotel carpet, whatever it may be. It doesn't really give them anything. People sitting in front of them gives them something. So to have it divided into three where there is a group directly in front of them is really valuable for the presenter, allowing them honestly to do a more energetic and better job. And in terms of the attendees, that's the prime real estate. That's the absolute best place to sit to be the most engaged with the presenter and get the most out of the presentation. In this segment, I want to talk about what is called either schoolroom or classroom style. This is one of the 3 most common setups and have been around some of the longest. What we traditionally think of is a 6-foot, what we even call a classroom table. So the classroom style automatically indicates we want them to pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the front of the room, and we have given them a table to work on and take notes. It's very good for intensive education, long periods of time, because it does keep them focused on the presenter. But you do need to know if the presenter is going to, at any point, say, talk amongst yourself about this point. It's not uncommon to have 2 people, but if your presenter is going to say, now, in groups of 4, it will not work, not efficiently and effectively. So you always need to know if your presenter has any plans on doing that. But it is very good for anything where you want people to keep very focused on the front. Not so effective if they are going to need to have discussion groups of more than 2 people. Again, it creates the environment of a classroom or a schoolroom watching the teacher. It is very effective for intense, heavy learning situations. So I hope you found the video to be useful. I hope maybe it even taught you some setups that you weren't familiar with, but also got you thinking about, why do I use a particular room setup? What is the strategy about it? That's what takes you to a different level in terms of your professionalism. Again, I want to thank Discover Lehigh Valley and Wind Creek Resort for making this happen. I really did try for a few years to get it made, and I couldn't find someone to partner with me, so I'm so happy they did. I want to thank ASR Media for shooting it, producing it, editing it, everything they did to make it look as wonderful as it looks now as you're watching it. And I also want to thank my friends Kim Copperthwaite, CMP, and Sharon DeFelice, CMP, both former students of mine who popped in and are in some of the shots that you see also. See you on the next video.